I would like to begin by thanking the conference organizers for providing the opportunity to introduce some of my discoveries, which gives us an entirely new perspective on the Anglo-Saxon Mappa Mundi. This is a truly remarkable document from history and sheds new light on knowledge and contacts between people. This is particularly important because this is a time period which we know so little about. The authenticity and provenance of the Anglo-Saxon Mappa Mundi, or world map, has never been in question. Its location has been documented for over 400 years. It is part of a collection of manuscripts known as the Cotton Collection. The collection was begun by Sir Robert Cotton in 1598 and added to by his descendants. The Cotton Library entered the British Museum collection in 1753 and was incorporated into the British Library collection in 1973. The map has a rectangular shape, approximately 17 by 21 centimeters across. It is composed of ink on vellum, and pigments were used to color select mountain ranges green and select rivers orange. It depicts buildings and geographic features from various locations throughout the Old World. Beginning at the top of the map and moving from left to right, we find China, India, the Arabian Peninsula, and Africa. Moving downward, what stands out the most are the lines and rectangular shapes that crisscross parts of the map. Continuing downward, the homelands of various tribal groups from Eastern Europe is noted on the right side of the map. At the lower right-hand side of the map, Iceland and the British Isles are depicted, and in the center, the so-called Pillars of Hercules are drawn. Previous scholars have often noted that the map contains the earliest realistic depiction of the British Isles. The cartographer gave particular attention and details to the northern islands, particularly the Orkneys. Previous research has claimed that the use of Latin on the map contains numerous mistakes. Also, that the information is virtual and based from the Bible. That the physical geography is inaccurate. That the map focuses on land. It's all about the ideological worldview, primarily Roman Christianity focused. And that is a unique, imaginative creation loosely based on earlier maps. Previous scholars have focused on the biblical locations mentioned on the map. These include cities such as Babylon, Jerusalem, Jericho, Alexandria, Hebron, Galilee, and the presumed resting place of Noah's Ark. This research followed a different avenue. Instead of looking at the map as an ideological or virtual map, a multidisciplinary archaeological science approach was used. Archaeological science uses similar methods and techniques that forensic scientists use to investigate and reconstruct crime scenes, and they apply it to archaeological problems. The benefit is that the conclusions are based on objective, testable evidence and data rather than subjective interpretation. The most detailed part of the map is the British Isles, so that was where the research began. On this map, Ireland is called by the older name Hibernia, and the city of Armagh was a major religious center in early Christianity, and that is clearly illustrated on the map. It is significant to note that Latin was not the language of this early Irish church, but rather a version of Greek was still used until about the 8th century. Only later did Latin come into common use, and then it was mixed with the earlier language, forming what is referred to as Hiberno-Latin. This distinctive language accounts for what some scholars refer to as mistakes in the use of Latin on the map and the use of foreign words or unusual words. The cities of London and Winchester are also depicted on the map. It is worthy to note that the only letter X on the map and the only personal items are a pair of boots. The X may have indicated the area where the map was produced. It has been suggested that the map may have begun its life in Exeter and ended in Canterbury before entering the Cotton Collection. Cantia rather than referring to Kent or Canterbury, might be referring to Escanister, the Saxon name for Exeter. Perhaps this is a regional designation. The illustrations that have biblical or religious correlations, such as Rome, are clear. The other illustrations around the map have previously been understood as the product of the monk's imagination and the need to fill in the blank spaces. No one has previously considered that they have a physical counterpart. Each of the illustrations on the map have archaeological evidence to support their existence during the 10th century. In the area of China, a drawing of a lion with the words, "Here abundant lions," does not refer to the animal, but it is clear that from the drawings that it is of a 10th century Buddhist guardian lion, complete with the raised tail and the front left paw. Moving around the map to India, where there are the words Golden Mountain next to an illustration, this is a representation of a Chola temple, which was previously gilded, thus it would have resembled a golden mountain. In southern Africa, the text reads, "There are volcanic mountains." This is in the location of Great Zimbabwe, where even today the archaeological remains resemble volcanoes. In Western Africa, even a Dogon building is illustrated. Thus, the map gives the location of 10th century religious buildings around the world and their location. In addition to the religion, all of these are places where the wealth was kept. This would provide the map reader with all the evidence that they would need. Even though the drawings are stylized landmarks, they would be identifiable if one was to visit these areas. The map has certain physical features labeled. But why are only select mountain ranges and rivers colored? Not all of them. The green color appears to be malachite, the copper ore, and these mountains are locations of copper ore sources. The red color seems to represent bronze. The red rivers are locations where the orange-colored metal bronze was in common use for utilitarian objects and coins. Given the locations of wealthy religious centers and the location of ore sources and metal objects, one can conclude that this is a treasure map. In order to make bronze, you need tin, and trade of tin from Cornwall in the southwest of England to the Middle East has a long history, going back thousands of years. During the 10th century, various timekeeping and navigation tools were known. The Benedictines were known to be particularly concerned about precise timekeeping. This was because they needed it for knowing what time for their prayers, but it was also so they knew the time of the tides, which is why these clocks are also referred to as tide dials. Of particular interest is the wooden disc found during an excavation of a Norse Viking site, which was also part of a Benedictine monastery on Greenland. The disc is 70 millimeters in diameter, and it has precise cutouts and incised lines. The scholars concluded that it is a navigational instrument. It was used as a twilight board, which is a combination of a horizon board and a sun compass. Details of how it works is beyond the scope of this paper. What is important to note is that at the conclusion of their research, they were able to assign exact dates to the gnomic lines on the artifact. However, they also note that they could not confirm how it was used because of lack of counterpart artifacts, that is, until now. If the straight north incised line is taken as an ordinary gnomic line at the 61st latitude, the matching Gregorian date, 10th of March, is unambiguously determined by the angle enclosed by this gnomic line and the marked direction of north. When the information from the disk is overlaid on the map, they align, and it cannot be a coincidence that the X is the starting point. Other gnomic lines on the disc align with Byzantium. In this situation, the lines align with Rome. However, the cardinal directions are in the wrong place. But when the map is turned 90 degrees to the position we are all used to seeing a map, it all becomes clear. The map becomes more familiar with Iceland in the northwest, Africa to the south, and China towards the east. When the locations on the map are labeled using current latitude and longitude lines, the map starts to become a bit more familiar. A paper by Dakkar discusses how Mercator and stereographic projections are related via conic conformal maps. Mercator maps were designed for navigators, while stereographic projections are most commonly used for mapping the sky. The Mappa Mundi is a sophisticated map that combines both of these projections. Dakkar notes that the mathematical knowledge for creating these maps only involves elementary calculus and trigonometry. This mathematical knowledge had been known for at least 1,000 years before the map was made, since the time of the Greek mathematicians. When the location and relative size of the landmass on the Anglo-Saxon Mappa Mundi is compared to the size and location on the Mercator or stereographic projection, it is clear that this is Australia, not Sri Lanka that others have claimed. What other clues can we find on the map that might reveal where this information and this knowledge came from? Well, the center of the map is Antioch, but it is not labeled. The reason is because from the 7th to the 11th century, the city was controlled by Muslim forces. Given the early Christian information on the map and the location of Antioch in the center, this is significant because the city was very important in the early days of Christianity. It was in this city that Christians were first called Christians, and it was from there that the believers of the new religion spread their message. The word apostle comes from the Greek, and in early Christianity was spread by the sea, and the language of the early church was Greek and Hebrew. When Antioch was taken by Muslims, Christians fled, and it is recorded that some of them went to the monasteries in Britain. So whose map is this? If we look at the places that are mentioned, such as Canterbury, Greenland, Iceland, Western Norway, the Scottish Isles, Exeter, Antioch as the center, Rome, and the other religious centers. If we take the languages, the use of Hiberno-Latin, Greek, Hebrew, religion, the early Christianity, and the knowledge of others. If we look at the activities, we know that they're sea people, that they're trading in metals. They have knowledge of Greek from the math and the navigation. They also have knowledge from ancient Egypt and the astronomy. So who were the people? Were these Vikings? Were these Anglo-Saxons? Benedictines? Hiberno-Norse? Were they remnants of the Dalriada? This is what we need to still find out. When the map is held in the horizontal position that we're familiar with maps, the image of what seems to be a dragon appears. Is this the image of a longship or a world serpent? There is an illustration of an Anglo-Saxon longship in the Cotton collection. It cannot be a coincidence that the mirror image of the longship and the world serpent are very similar. This would not have gone unnoticed by the people back in time. This could suggest that the map contained older, pre-Christian knowledge that was then built upon by the Christian Anglo-Saxons. To conclude, previous research thought that the Latin that was used contained numerous mistakes, that the map was virtual with biblical information, it was physically inaccurate, focused on the land, and it was based on the ideological worldview primarily of Roman Christianity. That, yes, it contained information based on earlier maps, but any additions were just the imagination of the monk. Now we know that it was not mistakes, but it was the use of Hiberno-Latin, that it is a tangible, practical map that contains a great deal of knowledge about physical and accurate geography. It is water or sea focused. It's practical navigation. It's more aligned with information from the Orthodox or Greek Christianity. It's based on earlier knowledge with added new information. It's the forerunner of a Mercator map, and it's the first depiction of Australia on a European map. The significance of this primary research results is far-reaching. This map is a key that opens a door to a past we know very little about. Regardless of its exact date of production, it suggests a greater amount of knowledge and contacts between various groups of people that was previously unknown. More importantly, it reveals a culture, a way of life that has not been explored due to lack of evidence. This presentation only begins to explore the vast amount of information this remarkable map contains. Thank you.